Everybody, look at me. Look at me. I am the captain now.
But dude, I always, you know what that reminds me of though? I feel so bad for female MMA fighters when they get like beat up and like they're all cut up and bruised because like let's say you're going into a grocery store and they don't know that you're a fighter. It looks like, and like let's say you're walking in with like your husband and you just have like a bunch of bruises.
Yeah.
That has to look so crazy to somebody who doesn't know that they're a fighter.
Yeah, that's way different because females naturally put on all the makeup and stuff anyways when going out.
Yeah. And it sucks because like
just...
some people are probably thinking like, oh, it's kind of like a sexist thing to say, but like think about it. If a guy is all like bruised up and he's out with his girl, like no one's gonna think like that the girl beat the crap out of him.
Like guy's not
gonna
get a ton of sympathy, but
yeah. But like when you see like if you don't know that it's a female MMA fighter and you just see her like walking in public with her boyfriend, like you're like, Jesus. Hope she's all right. Meanwhile, she just fought 15 minutes in the UFC in like a UFC fight night in Macau.
It's like, this girl is actually tougher than the guy she's walking in with.
Yeah, like she could probably beat his ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, that's so funny though. But like going back to what we were talking about before though, like with the sparring, I don't know if you kind of want to get into that because we were talking about it a little before the show. So like you were sparring with Cash Money Team, shout out Shane Miles, old friend of the channel, that's for sure. But you were with the Cash Money Team sparring on or yesterday on Sunday. So how was that? Kind of get into that a little bit to start the pod off.
Yes, so this was my first time going to like an outside gym. Well, I mean, apart from the UFC gym in Boston, that's still a UFC gym, but just in a different location. It looks different and has a different kind of culture and stuff to it. But this is a whole entire different gym with an entire different, kind of crew of people that turn up and stuff. And yeah, that was a room full of straight fighters, dude, through and through MMA, boxing, all that stuff. Like whatever you want to do, they were down to do it. There was his name's Brian, the head of the Raw Fitness in Lodi. Lodi, New Jersey. He's the head of it. He's like a Golden Gloves winner, honestly. Like he does boxing for real. I don't know how many matches he's had, but that dude's a heavy hitter for sure. Then there's Sal, who's a freaking former Marine. He does MMA, and he's the guy that I was doing some rounds with. I was doing MMA sparring for the first time, just like out of the blue. Like I was ready to just like kickbox and stuff, but I don't know. He trains a lot of MMA, so he's a big freaking dude, bro. And we were just we were going
so like
at it.
What was the weight looking like for you? Like what are you like walking around at versus that guy?
I'm close to 160. He's definitely over 200.
Okay,
probably closer to 300.
So you had some like UFC 1 type sparring,
yeah.
open weight.
Exactly, dude. Like this is no weight restrictions or whatever the fuck. Like it's just guys in there, whoever wants to get some scraps, and like you can do it over there at the gym. They do sparring every Sunday, but just like the gym itself was kind of this underground kind of looking with a mini ring that guys can go in there, and there was a lot of hard sparring going on in that boxing ring because we have
that's a different culture.
Yeah, a few of my training partners have fights coming up and stuff, so they're in that ring hard sparring and stuff. I got other guys from the Culture Gym that Shane is also really close with, or Richie Van Houten, he runs that, and a bunch of pro fighters turn up there and stuff. He got to meet the fighting nerds over there at the Culture Gym.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, shout out to Yanni Oliveira, he was there too, and so this gym's got like that underground vibe to it, like that real old school brawler feel to it. So I'm doing MMA rounds with them, and it's just I'm feeling all right on the feet and stuff, but I had to be so much more weird because like kickboxing, like unless it's Muay Thai rules and stuff, like there's not much clinching and stuff going on in kickboxing. It's just straight up just trying to maintain range.
Yeah.
I had to really be wary of like coming into his range and then where he could legit snap my head down or something and just throw me to the ground or just start kneeing me to the body or something. So I was feeling all right standing up and stuff, and then when he shot for the takedown, it was time to sprawl. Oh my God, that was a whole different monster. Like I'm on the ground, he's got the side mount on me and stuff, and he's trying to put me in like a Kimura, freaking armbar, chicken wing, all sorts of this kind of stuff. I'm just trying to fight the hands, but like since we're on the ground and stuff, and you know this is my first time doing MMA sparring. The ground and pound to the side of the head, like dude, I felt like, oh shoot, like if I don't actually keep my head, like the back of my head protected, like he's gonna put me to sleep for a few seconds. So I was kind of just trying to find ways to kind of just push the weight off of me and stuff. But it was so hard, and eventually got to a point where I was getting ground and pounded so hard and stuff that like I couldn't fight the hands anymore and stuff. And he got me in a submission. I just had to tap. So, and that was a lot. Like the wrestling, grappling. I've said it before on the pay-per-view pod, but like grappling's everything in MMA. And so when I was on the ground, it's just there's so much like nuance and stuff to it and stuff. You know, there's so much things you can do, but in the moment it's hard to think about what you should do. So
how was it cardio wise compared to like striking?
Cardio was fine. Like when it comes to cardio between boxing and MMA, boxing is where it's harder, and that's why people say like boxing is the harder sport because you're standing up and throwing nothing. But
that'll start an argument
time.
In the comments. You think boxing fans might be happy with us at this point? We're usually getting cooked by boxing fans. You might have just helped us out a tiny bit.
real stuff. And even some of the MMA fans, I feel like maybe you can agree with me too. But you know, this is also coming from the guy that just did MMA sparring for the first time. So Star Award, say what you will, but cardio wise, like you just asked, cardio is definitely way more prevalent in boxing. And we had Julian Rodriguez there, who's a pro now, but this guy's had over 200 amateur matches as a boxer, and this guy was in that ring hard sparring. He was hard sparring people, bro, and like dudes were getting busted up, like for either like they hadn't been busted up in a while or maybe even never at all, and that was happening to them for the first time. Or I missed it, but I just see this guy on the ground and so much pain on his back. They're telling him to roll over to his knees and stuff because he had just gotten whacked right in the liver, dude. I thought he got hit. I thought he got hit with a freaking nut shot. I thought that's why he was down, but turns out it was a liver shot. Even Shane was like, yeah, that guy was world class. Like that's a guy that Shane himself said he'd like. I really want to get some rounds with that dude someday. That was really cool though. Cause I didn't even, but just being in that environment, I knew everybody there was a fighter and stuff. There would be some pros. I didn't think there would be someone like Julian Rodriguez there, freaking giving out the work to everybody. So
that's cool though.
I had a really awesome eye-opening experience for sure. You know, they've got like the Everlast speed bag there and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
those things are fun.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. And yeah, it just felt like a straight up fighter environment. So I'm excited to go back. That's for sure. You know.
Yeah, you definitely have to keep me posted on that. Maybe we'll have some content coming for the channel with that at some point.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be a big year for a lot of these people that I train with and stuff.
I hope so.
I definitely want.
Gotta get some of them on the pod at some point.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Like even just like if they want to sit in and recap fights and just talk a little bit. You know?
I think there'll definitely be an idea for that coming soon. So.
Yeah, that could be fun. We'll keep you posted on that because I know some of them didn't they just compete in Naga. That too. I saw that on Shane's story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Grappling
cool.
Industries. Shout out to Coach J. Rome, John Romero, our jiu-jitsu coach. Nice. Mike, Eva, those they did a really good job over there. You know, so that was really cool too. Yeah.
I like that. The whole team getting work in.
That's right, man.
Well, let's talk about this UFC card because obviously, you know, our true fans, our true listeners, they love listening to this type of stuff about us talking about sparring and stuff like that. But the casual MMA fan, they want to hear about these UFC fights, and I say we don't hold it from them any longer.
I do. Let's talk about the MMA pros and stuff now. Cause
man, this
I freaking getting ground and pounded for the first time and stuff. Like man, I just look at these guys. It's just I was more like, dude, how even like 3 rounds. I watched a 3-round fight, and it's just an all-out war. And I think about, dude, what if this was a 5-round fight? Like, how did these guys make it through this entire 25 minutes?
These are the best fighters in the world, man, in the UFC. And we saw 2 of them in the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia this past weekend. And if you guys missed it, Nasruddin and actually, I got to say it right, how he said it. He said this to Paul Felder. It's Imavov, not Imavov, none of that. Imavov. So I got to get that one right. But, for those who didn't see it, Nasruddin Imavov TKO'd former dominant middleweight champion Israel Adesanya in round 2 of their main event. Brutal right hand, a lot of ground and pound. And I don't know, my first reaction when I saw it was shock. Not even because I don't think Imavov... I keep messing up. Even though I know Imavov is really good, it just like... It's still shocking to see someone who was so great for so long in Israel Adesanya get knocked out like that in this type of fight, like a non-title fight, fight night main event. It's not even a pay-per-view. It was kind of crazy to see that, and it's still kind of shocking even a couple of days after and removed from it. It's, he's getting up there though, Israel Adesanya. I think he's 35 now, and we're truly seeing the next generation at 185 start to come forward into the rankings. And I remember we were talking about this like mid last year. We were saying how none of them are really able to break through, and it seems like lately they're all breaking through that upper echelon of middleweight with Hamzat through Whitaker. Now we have Imavov versus Adesanya.
I think that's a good thing.
No, it's amazing. When's the last time we've had a problem where there were like too many contenders at middleweight? Because if you think about it, when Adesanya was champion, that was the big thing. There were so many rematches. There were no new contenders coming through. And now we have a good title fight this weekend that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then we also have all these contenders. We have Hamzat. We have Imavov. Halio, too, is a sleeper in that division. And there's still those other guys who have taken some losses recently who are still near the top in the division. So, yeah, middleweight's real fun right now, but... I don't know, do you want to get into that first, or do you want to get into the fight itself first? Because obviously there's both conversations that we can have.
The fight itself first. So here's an encouraging thing, right? Because at least Izzy was showing that spring still to his step.
He looked great in round
punches.
1.
Yeah, he had a good start for sure. And he looked like himself, kind of just snapping these calf kicks and stuff, because I think Imavov was more or less just kind of feel out Izzy, and just trying to see that opening that he ended up knocking him out with. He really only, I think it was just in the first round, like a right hand towards the end that he landed that. So he had landed the biggest shot of the first round, but it was still clear 10-9 for Izzy.
Yeah. I think if he would have dropped him, maybe we would have had another conversation. But the fact that he kind of just wobbled him, and then Izzy, he was basically fine after that. Like it stunned him, but rang the bell. But definitely, he won the round.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
For the stoppage,
yeah, what'd you think of that? I'm curious about that.
I thought it was fine. I thought it made sense, but there's another side to it where, because it's Israel Adesanya, that you felt the fight could have kept going. But I mean, he was face down on the canvas, getting kind of pounded and stuff by Imavov. So
when I first watched it, I kind of was like a little. That could have went a little longer, but then the second time I watched it, I was kind of like, yeah. I mean, he wasn't out there, obviously. Like, I think he still was capable of defending himself, but he was a couple of shots away from that, and it's like, what's the point? some point, like I think I've heard some people talk about training, and I don't know how much you've experienced this in any grappling training you've done, but I've definitely like talked to like people like Sean and stuff about it. But like when you're just like in a submission in jiu-jitsu, like just tap. Like there's no point in like going out cold. Like
well, yeah, there's some
like when there's certain situations like where let's say like somebody has both hooks in, the choke is under the chin. You can fight the hands off. It's over. Like, there's not much that's going to happen that's going to save you at that point.
So there's kind of a difference in a way, right? Some people, like, it's more, it could go both ways, because even if you don't have a choke necessarily, because I don't know how you don't tap out of a choke, because that is legit just like, dude, like,
sounds like you're just a bitch to us.
Yeah.
Sounds like you don't want to go out on your shield.
Mr. Patty Pimblin over here.
Dude, did you see that thing with him sparring that guy on the internet?
Oh, yeah,
he
that
like,
guy
beat
was
the crap
dude,
out of that
he
dude.
was beating it. Yeah, and then when he went to the ground and he wouldn't let the submission
Yeah, he
go.
tapped like 3 times. They had to break him up.
Dude,
that was crazy.
Was pretty crazy, yeah. I don't know how you don't tap out of a choke, though, because once that choke is off of you, bro, you can't even talk for like a few seconds or whatever, and that alone just sucks when you're coughing like it's just like you start your eyes start tearing up and stuff. But the other way is like if it's not so much a choke, then there's so much strain going on your neck where it's just that alone is like your neck just feels like so stiff in this position that you can tap from that. Now in an actual pro fight, if it's not a full choke and it's more just strain on your neck, then
well, in this fight
tap.
it was basically, I mean, he had his back fully, but in back mount, but it was just straight ground and pound. He wasn't going for any choke.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's that, but that's kind of what I mean. Like he was in a situation where like he might not have been out yet, but what was he gonna do?
Yeah.
Face down on the mat, getting pounded on like that. Like even if he's bucked a little bit, I just
exactly
kind
of. So like like we can think about the last card and Islam and Renato Moicano. Like you've got an Islam Makhachev on your back. What really are you gonna do, right? You know, because even if you are maintaining the stay out of a submission hold the rest of the way, like he's still gonna have your back for the entire time. He's gonna control the round, and then at that point, you know, you've already lost the round. So it's at that point, okay, well, there's nothing you can do about that. Just like there's nothing you could do about you're getting put to sleep, or getting knocked out. And in this case, there was a where you could argue is an early stoppage, but. What more was Izzy really going to do in that position?
Exactly. And I don't even want to take away from Imavov's win either, because I do think that this was the biggest win of Imavov's career and by far. And this is a guy who's had some controversy in his last few wins because against Brendan Allen, Dolidze, those fights, they just weren't really exciting. And then remember when he fought Cannonier, we were having a similar conversation, although much more warranted, about an early stoppage. So, I think that he's in a situation now where it's kind of there's the log jam at the top at middleweight because there's already a title fight. There's still Khamzat waiting in the wings. I do think that Imavov might have to fight one more time before he gets a title shot unless he just wants to sit on the shelf for a year. I thought this was interesting when I posted about it on Instagram. PHB Rob, shout out to him, the guy who has the song on our outro, if you guys like that. So he commented on our Instagram post about it, talking about he thinks that after this title fight, Khamzat should fight the winner, and then Imavov should get the loser of the fight. And I'm like, I could see a world where that works. If it's Strickland, it's a little bit tougher, because didn't Strickland already fought Imavov, if I remember right? So maybe, I mean, I don't know how much that would...
But clearly Imavov's pretty active guy.
Yeah. That's why I think it'd be fun if a guy like that won the title, because you know he'd be defending it all the time. And I love champions like that. That's why I liked Izzy so much when he was champ. Like people, I can't, it's amazing to me how much people will like shit on one of the best fighters in modern UFC history just because of like the way he acts personally. But it's like, how could you not appreciate a guy who wants to get in there and fight for you like 3-4 times a year? And he was fighting multiple weight classes during his reign, too, because he went up to light heavyweight at the one point. So it's just the disrespect that people give Izzy sometimes just because of how he is as a person is just kind of like, it's crazy to me. Like I'm not like the biggest fan of him personally, but like as a fighter, how could you not respect that? But
Well, yeah.
I kind of went on a rant there.
Nah, dude, the sport's just it's unforgiving,
Yeah.
my guy. It's really unforgiving and ruthless, and it's not everyone, or even not even really close to everybody's gonna be able to leave on a good note. So, not to say this is the end of the road for Israel Adesanya, but you're seeing clearly, just like an era come to an end. And he's fought everybody there is to fight already. So what really more is there to chase at this point,
But you want to know why I love Izzy though? He's like a true fighter, like through and through, a true fighter because he just loves this, and that's kind of what makes me think he might fight.
What do you think about the question he was asked about having a fight night instead of a pay-per-view?
I know that they
being
asked
a
him
downgrade.
What did he say about that? Do you remember?
He said it's not like it's in the apex. Yeah, that's what he said. He said it's not like it's in the apex. Like, there's still a crowd. There's still
the apex catching strays.
The apex legit caught a crazy stray, dude. It's like it's not like it's in the apex. There's still a crowd to fight in front of, and that just in general, the Saudi cards are big cards anyways. Yeah. So he said there's still an opponent and stuff.
And it's a big fight
for him. Yeah,
there's a top 5 like title contenders, both of them.
Yeah,
so,
the apex caught a crazy stray.
Yeah, I mean, not to dwell on Izzy because I do kind of want to talk about Imavov and where this puts him, and I kind of touched on it before. I do kind of agree with the idea that Khamzat should probably get the winner of DDP versus Strickland, but I kind of like the idea of Imavov getting the loser of that fight, and then it's a win-win for both because if Imavov gets another win, then he's a clear number 1 contender and beat a former champion either way, whether it's Strickland or DDP. And, yeah, I mean, if the loser of that fight gets a win over a surging contender, they're right back in the title picture. And especially with this fight, too, because let's say Strickland wins this fight on Saturday, DDP gets a win over Imavov, then boom, you have a trilogy. You can book that right there, even with one win off of just because of the storyline. So like, there's a lot of options right now at middleweight, and I think that that's really fun. And we haven't had that in a long time because people forget how dominant Israel Adesanya was when he was champion. But now we're really having like a lot of different things go on at the top 5 in middleweight because think about it, it was Adesanya, and then after that it was really the rivalry between Adesanya and Pereira for a little bit, and then DDP obviously ended up getting the belt after that, and he's been pretty dominant since. But now we have all these new contenders, so it's really opened up a lot of doors at 185, man. This win that Imavov has managed to get over Izzy. So that's my take on it. But that was all I really had for this fight. I don't know if you want to say anything else about it before we move on to the co-main.
Nah, me neither, man. Yeah, dude. Just like, well, isn't it just like the last thing about Izzy, but kind of how it's now corroborated so crazy how, I mean, even when he was still champion beating everybody, you're like, yeah, this dude's a legend and all, but now you put it into retrospect because it's kind of like, okay, he's 35 years old now.
He's lost 4 of his last 5.
4 of his last 5. Like, man,
it's
like,
a tough spot.
So, dude, like, yeah, this is a legend whose career is coming to a close very soon. So,
yeah, either way, I mean, I still think he's capable of getting wins over top level opponents. I mean, we talked about that first round against Imavov. He did look good. He clearly still has it, but yeah, I mean, I think he knows too. He's very self-aware. He's on the back 9 of his career. So I think it's about big fights and just still enjoying it if he obviously wants to keep fighting, which I think he does. I don't think he's going to retire after something like this. But yeah, that's my thought process on it all. But let's move on to the co-main event and talk about Michael Venom Page versus Shara Magomedov because that was an insane outcome, honestly. MVP takes Shara's O, hands him his first pro loss via unanimous decision, 230-27s and then 129-28. And MVP just put on a striking clinic in there against Shara, man, and I was super impressed. And I don't think any less of Shara because MVP is such a good striker, man. You can't hold something like that against Shara. MVP is like one of those unicorn type fighters. You're never really gonna fight somebody quite like that. That's just my opinion on it. But what do you think of this fight?
Well, all right, we'll talk about the fight in general because it'll play into my side of Shara anyways.
Sure.
But at least in the beginning and all, I think not even in the beginning, but more so as the fight went on, because whether or not it was MVP knowing that he's the one winning, or Shara insecure because he knows he's losing, where MVP he's trying to get a fight out of Shara, but Shara is the one trying to wave him on, but not really going for it or trying, not I won't say not trying to throw anything, but going for it and really trying to make the fight uncomfortable for MVP. It's kind of just like you just mentioned, call it so off guard by how unorthodox and unique MVP's kind of style is as a fighter, and his stance and the way he's able to evade strikes and all that kind of stuff. It was Charlo kind of like, hey, like fight me, but MVP's the one actually kind of enabling the offense and the craftiness.
Because what Shara was doing, and I don't like when fighters do this too, because I kind of agree with you. It's like you're waving someone on, but you're not actually doing something. Like when fighters they'll walk forward and wave someone on, but they're not doing anything. Like they're not throwing jabs. They're not trying to do anything to push that offense. And the other person, like MVP's a counter striker. Like you have to know that going into a fight with him. And I honestly I think that's why the UFC won't make Wonderboy versus MVP, because if you get two counter strikers in there, that's going to be a boring fight because neither of them are going to push the pace that much. And that's always, to go on a little tangent about MVP, that's kind of why I've never wanted to see that fight, even though fans always clamor for it. I'm like, I don't think you guys realize what type of fight that would be. If you're really into the striking and you want to see a chess match, that's the fight for you. But
no, here's what I like about MVP though, because I think he still has that finishing strike in his arsenal.
Yeah.
Where
he tried it.
You saw him. You saw either his spinning heel kick that he landed nicely, and then I think honestly, no,
he almost hit that flying knee at the very end of the fight.
Flying knee, that too, just the craftiness altogether. But how his stance, his sideways kind of karate stance, I think it allows for that right hand, or if he switched to southpaw, obviously, just like that backhand to just, if you wanted to load that up and just swing kind of from the hip, but it would land with so much power if it landed that how could someone not drop from that?
I also think he has such an unorthodox version of that karate style compared to Wonderboy, because Wonderboy, he's really great at keeping his range, but I almost think MVP is better at it because Wonderboy, he has more of this type of range, while MVP, he has his arms straight. I've never seen someone fight like that. But the thing is, people are actually afraid to break into his range because he's such a good counter striker. He's the epitome of a sniper in MMA.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. This dude's a tough guy to fight. That's why I don't really think Shara is a fraud necessarily for having a performance like this, because MVP, he's such a tough guy to get in there with. It's a style that you're never going to come across.
All right, listen, here's why I think this was such a telling fight for Shara and why this was such a big blow to his star, if you will, because I think it's fair to say this isn't the first time that we're seeing Shara Bullet gun shy and not really it seems at times he goes in there with not much of a just a game plan to stick to that he trains in camp and wants to stick to. It's more he's going in there and he knows how kind of gifted of a striker he already is, that he's just going to play off that, and so it leads to a lot of tentativeness and just trying to feel out the guy across from him, that he's just kind of letting the fight go by, and he's not.
He's almost
his fight. I think it was his fight before his last one, Petrosian. What was it with Michael O? Or
I think so.
I think.
Oh no, yeah, I think it was him, because I think the first fight that he had was against Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, either way,
We've talked about in the past that, and even that
both
was
of
a
those
fight he
fights
won
are really...
that. Yeah, a fight he won that. Well, he seemed tentative at first and not really willing to throw. And at the time, I was like, okay, well, it's more just just letting the fight just play out and just trying to feel out the opponent and stuff. And when he racks up TKO finishes, like he's gonna become more and more just able to just strike throughout the entirety of all 3 rounds. That he's not really gonna leave those points out there for his opponent to take and for the judges to kind of like, in a way, if it was a razor thin decision, it would come to the if this fight, honestly, when it was clearly MVP won, you kind of thought in the back of your head, like, feel like the judges are still gonna find a way to give
I was getting nervous a little
to
bit.
Shara.
Yeah, and that was a closer round, but it's basically just a...
But here's the thing in general with Shara, and it's still what, his 6th UFC fight, his 5th UFC fight.
I
think this was his 5th UFC fight. So far, because the fraud label would be strong to put on, but why?
Well, people are doing it though because they're MMA fans, brother.
Yeah, I get that part, and those are people that just are just looking for the attention, but. I'm going to speak more objectively on why I feel like this fight was very telling and going forward. Shara Bullet, 5th one. Well, very telling is why Shara Bullet might not be who a lot of people might have thought he was, or who I kind of thought like he was going to be, or you might think he's still going to be. Because even after the last fight, this guy had one of the craziest knockouts of the year last year. Again, with that double spinning back fist.
Shara Bullet.
That's obviously but that at the end of the day, that's something that doesn't it just doesn't happen. There's an element of luck to that is always going to be behind that you can't really break it down so analytically and stuff that because they did that, this guy's got future champion written all over.
See, but to me though, it's not even that though. It speaks to the creativity of his striking. Like we were talking about Yuri the other week. That's kind of my point with him. Yuri, what he did to Dominic Reyes, he's not going to do that in every fight, and no one thinks that. But it's just the fact that that's there, that's something that he's trained. It's more so, I think, that element of it, at least to why I think he's such a good striker. And that's why I don't hold this loss as much against him, because while I agree with all your points about how he's not as urgent as maybe he should be in the cage, I just think that this matchup would have been tough anyway. Yeah. And I think if he would have just plodded forward, he probably would have just gotten knocked out in hindsight, which, again, I think it's strong to say he's a fraud, but he's still young. He has a ton of potential. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, that's promising that he didn't get finished, but still a 30-27 to me is pretty telling, and so
he needs to learn from it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fight. You wonder what he'll get out of that, how his style might change.
I think there's a guy that can walk.
He wants to fight down like Nick Diaz, but doesn't put the emphasis on accelerating.
Exactly, dude.
But he walks you down, but he doesn't throw. That's kind of what is the case with him.
Because you're afraid of, at least, but even before the
he's done that in his other fights.
Yeah, you know that this guy's capable of
he has a lot of feints, but he doesn't throw a lot. He's just. But he walks you down.
That's
why
MVP in this fight did so well. He didn't play into that. He didn't just leave his chin hanging for Shara.
Yeah. Well, he's never gonna do that. Yeah. That's the thing.
But there you go. Yeah, I mean that's why. Anyways, why this is a tough fight for Shara, and just at the time,
good matchup.
Even though this is obviously MVP's, still one of his first fights in UFC, and we're still, waiting to. Even though MVP is one of those guys that you can obviously still thrust into that upper echelon of or just the top 15 in general. He's a guy that still kind of in a way sets a bar, and Shara hasn't passed that bar yet, clearly. So how much further can you really go beyond that?
We'll see.
Because here's the other thing, and the other kind of general thing too is, for what it's worth, he can't fight anywhere else besides Saudi Arabia. So,
Yeah, is that true? Like, I don't even.
While it may not be
Because of,
concrete, because of his
yeah.
eye, it may not be concrete, like 100% confirmed that that's the case. But if you put logic together,
it does make sense.
Yeah, what commission here in the U.S. is really gonna like sanction a sharp fight and stuff? So, because if something did happen with that, like, man, that would.
That would be pretty bad. Yeah.
So like, he doesn't fight anywhere besides Saudi, and so for whatever that's worth, like, it's just how big is the ceiling really? Is Shar Bully actually a future champion title contender, or is he just, hey, the UFC has this guy in their back pocket? He's exciting. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I truly think it's just too early to tell. I think the next fight is what I'm most curious about. Like, how does he look?
That's why the fraud label is messed. Fraud label's too strong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
If only MMA fans didn't have to deal with extremes.
Yeah.
It can be in the middle. There could be a gray area. You know what I mean?
That's what I think. I'm saying too that at least going forward, this was a very eye-opening fight.
Yeah.
And he might be closer to that fraud label than we might have thought at first.
I would agree with that. That's fair. So, well, let's take a little pivot before we go. One last thing you wanted to talk about, so I'll let you go into it. Paul Hughes versus Conor McGregor, the beef between the Irishmen. How about we get into that a little bit?
Crazy,
so,
man.
I want to let you give the take that you were telling me before the podcast, because I think it's an interesting one. And some MMA fans are gonna like this. Some are gonna think, why are you bringing that into this sport? And I'll get into it. I'll play devil's advocate for the other side too, but I kind of agree with you. So.
Yeah, because it is MMA, because it is such a ruthless, mean sport that words at the end of the day don't matter as you might think they do. Because in relation to this, you go back to Khabib and Conor. How much did Conor, all the really crazy, super disrespectful stuff he was saying about Khabib and his country and family, how much did that matter when Conor got freaking face cranked in there and then kind of humiliated for the rest of his career? Because now we're here, and it kind of all comes full circle because Paul Hughes, after his fight with Usman, he got all that credit and stuff from the Nurmagomedovs, and Khabib hopped on the mic and stuff, and he was giving the praise to Ireland and all that. But Paul Hughes was like, I'm not like this other guy. So that's where this all started. And so now that happened,
well, can I say this though before, needs to be said, and we were talking about this before the pod too, that was from Anatomy of a Fighter. So it's kind of on Paul Hughes, because you should know in that moment there's probably going to be some camera on you, whether it's from the PFL or in this case from Anatomy of a Fighter. But then the clip was also, it was a cut clip. So you just saw that he said that, not anything else that he might have said before that. Mm-hmm. That might have maybe not sounded as harsh. But then again, I still think that's a pretty telling statement, just saying to him hey, I'm not like that other guy. I just want you to know that. That kind of gives you an idea of where his mind is about Conor.
Paul Hughes is clearly a great guy, really down to earth, humble dude and stuff. That's great and all. You'd love to see that genuine dude that people can kind of model just who they are as a person after yada yada. But in this sport where the guy that in question here, Conor McGregor, who was his idol and stuff, who transcended the sport as much as he did, being so brash and cocky and just confident, period. That's the big word, confident and stuff, that he could walk the talk and stuff and just...
You mean talk the... Wait, yeah, no, you got it. Never mind. I'm going to do it. I was about to... Sorry.
And bring that whole kind of new era and just fan base to the MMA line. Just make MMA mainstream in general. In a way, it's a sport you gotta embrace a little bit of a character. You gotta be able to market yourself and sell fights and be you don't want to fake it. Fake beefs are corny, don't get me wrong. But this is clearly a real beef here. And so I think Paul Hughes got this huge, crazy, worldwide platform now that he's never seen before. One that could potentially thrust him into the UFC scene if you were to keep putting on great fights and winning. Obviously, you gotta finish fights
because it needs to be said too. Like, people knew who he was like in MMA circles, but then this fight with Usman or Magomedov, and he has this amazing fight with him, a war.
Yeah.
And now he has a lot of respect from the MMA community because those who know fighting, like, they know that Usman Nurmagomedov is a really damn good fighter. Yeah. And this dude just gave him a fight that we've never seen people give Usman Nurmagomedov. And so now, like, he's already kind of exploded into stardom in the MMA world just because, like I said, people who know the sport know that this is a big result. But now you get into the Conor McGregor part of it,
where he can now really thrust himself, like, just pretty much go for the dragon's head in a way. Go at Conor. Don't be so, like, kind and nice and humble.
Don't be safe about it.
Yeah.
Like, what side of the fence are you on?
Where he's like, no, I don't really, like, I didn't really care. I didn't really put that much stock into what Conor says these days. All that, and that's good, but at the same time, you still respond, and you're like, clearly he was hurt about it. And at least initially, it was like, paid homage to him every chance I got, and it's clear to see where your head is at these days.
But so to be clear, though, you think that it would have been cool and better for his career if he would have went heel?
I think in a way he could have set himself up for, like, more like, in a way, just like a kind of like just a brand of who.
There'd be conversations being had.
Yeah,
said,
and
like we'd be having a different conversation right now if he just trashed Conor.
If he just really went for Conor, just being like screw you, Conor. Like, you're a bitch and all that. Like, you're the one watch. You're the old man now who's sitting at home, hasn't fought in 3 years and stuff with that leg and stuff. You're watching me put on these great fights while I'm still in my prime.
And he's like, I did something against the Dagestani that you couldn't.
All of Ireland's on my side now. Yeah.
That's that plan. This was planned, wasn't it? Don't lie to me, buddy.
No, yeah, it's definitely planned. I definitely finally getting this shirt for this, but.
He comes in before we gotta say this. We didn't even have this on the outline. You came in like, I need to talk about Paul Hughes versus Conor. I didn't even notice you were wearing the.
Yeah, no, I definitely was like, yeah, the two Irishmen and stuff. We're gonna talk about Paul Hughes and all that. I got something I want to say for Paul Hughes because I think Paul Hughes is already an awesome fighter and stuff, and because we already know he's a great guy, I think he could have went heel. You could have just been like,
But I wanted to give you like my. I mean, I kind of agree with you, but then on the other side, there's also the traditional like MMA fan in me. That there's some MMA fans who hate that like world of the pro wrestling type promo so much, even though they shouldn't, because in my opinion, the worlds of pro wrestling and MMA are like this. If you really know MMA history, and you know me, I'm not like a fan of the WWE or anything, so you can't even say like, oh, some WWE. Like, I don't even care about that stuff, but like, it's just the god honest truth. But where was I going with that? It was like where was I going with that? I just like lost myself.
I think where we're going with this was like, you're probably gonna mention.
Oh yeah, some MMA fans, like traditional MMA fans who don't care about like WWE type stuff, they like the type of answer that Paul Hughes gave because he was being real, and there was like respect, but he was also like towing a line and saying some stuff like, oh, you can see where his head is at, like things where you get what he's trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Without actually saying it. Like, but there's some fans like you who want to see the guy go heel and create a character, maybe not even a character is not the word for it, but like create headlines by saying something wild because he was in a position where you're coming off such a good result, even in a loss, your stock goes up because you did something that no one's really been able to do in a fight with Usman or Magomedov, and now like he could have capitalized on it. That's what you're saying, right? I want to be like 100% clear.
I'm saying, yes.
All right, gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah, because I get that point of view. I really do. I don't know if I would have had to hear like him say it because there's, like you said, fake beefs are kind of stupid. Like, because if you think of like some of the stuff that like Colby has said to fighters at certain points, it's kind of like stupid. You're like, oh, yeah, that was kind of corny. But if he would have gone about it in a good way, that would have been pretty cool. But hey, man, I mean, we're still talking about it right now. So I think that some of the reason why I think he didn't do that is because I just think there's this reverence in Irish MMA for Conor McGregor, even from the people who don't necessarily like him. And like, just because he kind of put the sport on the map over there, And I do think that there's something to be said about the level of respect that these up-and-coming guys have for him. When we talked about it with Ian Gary all the time when he first got into the UFC. And I still think that there's some of that for Paul Hughes, where like even if he's insulting you, he's still like a pioneer of Irish MMA. And like I just think whether they realize it or not, they just have a respect for that. And I mean, they kind of should, because if you're just talking strictly in the octagon, Conor McGregor, I mean, you could say what you want about the past few years, but his title reign and the run that he was on at featherweight especially, I mean, that was unbelievable. Yeah. And he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
So we talked about the two extremes before, remember? Like with Shara. And this is another situation. Like, yeah, Conor McGregor might not be what he used to be. I mean, he definitely isn't what he used to be. But that doesn't discount how good he was when he was in that moment. And I hate that, like, we can't have that conversation. Well, we can, but it's just, you get hate for even bringing that up, like that he was actually a top contender and true champion at one point.
But I think obviously even Conor himself has heard it so much at this point that he's not who he used to be. That what happened to this Conor and stuff, and
Paul Hughes could have maybe really gotten into his head.
Yeah.
I mean, you wonder what really Conor McGregor is thinking nowadays.
That's what I mean. Is because Conor at a point where he doesn't. I don't think he actually cares. He understands that because he's the star he is. It's like he knows people think what he says is gonna get a response, and so even if it's the most like kind, respectful kind of way, like Paul Hughes. It's gonna. There you go. He got a response. He got what he wanted. Like Conor doesn't have to really even say much more about it. It's more Conor just digging the hole for himself, and the more he tweets and like.
Yeah, well, because people who know MMA, they're like, well, you're talking, but you're not fighting. Like that was like the big thing with Dylan Dennis. Like he would constantly talk, but never actually get into the Bellator ring. So it's kind of just in this case, it's been so long since Conor's fought, and he's healthy. It's not like there's his leg. Well, you could argue like his leg won't ever be the same, but like that's not what I mean. I'm saying like he would be cleared to fight. So I just don't know if he really wants that. I don't think he cares, to be honest. I think he does like to fight, but I also think he's smart and he knows where he's at business wise, and it's like he can, like you said, he could say anything and people will give it coverage. I mean, look at what we're doing right now. So he's a huge name.
That's what I mean. Because
I get your point though.
Yeah,
with Paul
clearly
Hughes.
he was an idol. Paul Hughes looked up to him and stuff, and like clearly, dude, Paul Hughes was like definitely like hurt deep down, very just like, man, dude, I gave you all your flowers and stuff, like
which
every chance I got, respectful. And like this is how you're gonna claim that my own country doesn't claim me now and stuff.
When, if you think about it, it's the exact opposite. Because you hear reports that Conor McGregor wants to move
that's
here
what I mean. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Just be like, turn it back.
You wonder
on
where
him.
his psyche's at, man.
Yeah.
Like, I truly do wonder that. I don't know. I don't want to get in the whole Conor McGregor conversation because we've done that ad nauseum. But
I like that. Still, hopefully, Paul Hughes keeps putting on good fights, and maybe this does build up his star and stuff more, because
he's got a good weight class for it.
Yeah, if he hadn't put on this great fight with Usman in the first place and got that respect from Khabib, like this wouldn't have happened anyway. So he made himself relevant enough in that point. But now it's at the point where like I think we'd want to see Paul Hughes in UFC one day, so
maybe.
I think UFC would want to see, like, hey, this guy, like, he sells fights and stuff, and, like, he markets stuff and all of that. So, yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I like it, though. A lot of stuff to talk about in MMA right now, and so that'll be it for this one. I say we move on now, because next week I'm really excited for this. UFC 312. Sean Strickland, DDP rematch. That's going to be insane. And then the strawweight title fight. I am so excited for this. Zhang Wei Li versus Tatiana Suarez. That's going to be a really fun one in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be fun to cover it next week with a big episode like we love to do for these pay-per-views. And yeah, man, this was a fun one. So
yeah,
we'll see y'all.
Hey, locker.